Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at this terrifying discovery made by a man in his basement. But before we get started, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our awesome videos. And with that being said, let's begin. Have you ever come across a mystery in your home? Perhaps an unusual sound or an object that appears to be out of place? Well, for this homeowner, his curiosity got the better of him when he noticed something strange behind his basement wall. But what he was about to discover would change everything. His house was older and had been in his family for many years. It had plenty of nooks and crannies for him to explore. He never thought that there would be anything too shocking hiding in the walls. However, he was very wrong. The man had lived in the home all of his life. For the first 23 years, he had no idea that there was a secret passageway in the property. It wasn't until he decided to redecorate that he uncovered the mystery. The man had just moved into his late parents' home after they had passed away. He had fond memories of growing up here and wanted to renovate the property in their honor. But little did he know what he would find next. He went down into the basement to get some ideas of what he could do with the space. This is where the real horror began. As he walked through the dimly lit basement, his eyes adjusted to the darkness and he started to take in his surroundings. That's when he saw it. He noticed a dark hole behind one of the walls. It was roughly the size of a small person. How had he never seen this before? Was there a secret passageway hidden in plain sight all these years? It was clearly visible, but also inconspicuous enough that it could have easily been missed. The man felt a surge of adrenaline as he realized what he had just seen. He quickly grabbed his phone from his pocket and turned on the flashlight feature. He shone the light into the hole, but it was too dark and narrow for him to see anything. It looked like a tunnel, but where did it lead to, and why had it been concealed for so long? He stood there for a moment, contemplating whether he should investigate further. On one hand, he was curious about what lay beyond the tunnel, but he was also afraid of what he might find. After a few moments of contemplation, he decided to go for it. He didn't want to let this mystery go unsolved. So he took a deep breath and crawled through the opening. As he made his way through the tunnel, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. It was pitch black and the air was stale and musty. He could hear nothing but the sound of his own breathing and the beating of his heart. Suddenly, he felt something brush against his leg. He froze in place, his heart racing. Then he heard a faint rustling sound. Whatever had brushed against him just disappeared into the darkness. He tried to calm himself down, telling himself that it was probably just a mouse or some other small animal. But as the minutes passed, he started to feel more and more uneasy. He continued crawling forward slowly and cautiously. Finally, he saw a faint glimmer of light ahead of him. He crawled towards it, hoping that it meant freedom. When he finally emerged from the tunnel, he found himself in a small, dark room. The only light source was a crack in the wall that allowed a sliver of sunlight to peek through. He stood up and brushed himself off, trying to get rid of the feeling of claustrophobia that had settled over him. He looked around the room to see if there was an exit, but it was a dead end. There was nothing but dirt and old wooden crates. He started to panic, realizing that he was trapped. He tried to remember how he got there, but it was too dark and disorienting for him to recall. He started to scream for help, but his voice echoed in the darkness and no one could hear him. He ran to the only exit, the tunnel, and started to crawl back. But the darkness was too much for him to bear, and he soon became lost. He started to feel despair set in as he realized that he might be stuck here forever. Just when he thought he couldn't go on any longer, he saw the faint glimmer of light again. With renewed hope, he crawled towards it and soon found himself back in his basement. Shaking and scared, he stumbled out of the tunnel and into the basement. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, and his hands were trembling. He quickly called 911 and told them about his ordeal. They sent a search and rescue team to help him, but they were unable to find anything. He was the only person who knew about the tunnel. As the days went by, the man couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching him. He started to notice strange sounds and shadows in his basement. At night, he would wake up in a cold sweat, his dreams filled with images of the dark tunnel and the mysterious room. He became so scared that he refused to go near the basement. He tried to convince himself that it was all in his head, but the fear was too overwhelming. He decided to move out of the house and rent it to someone else. But even from his new home, he could feel the presence in his old house. He would often drive past it and see people coming and going, but he never dared to go inside. One day, he heard from his tenant that strange things had been happening in the basement. Unexplainable noises and objects that appeared to be moving on their own. The tenant had even seen a shadow in the basement that they couldn't identify. The man was shocked. He had hoped that the house would just be a distant memory, but it seemed like the mysteries were only growing. He decided that he needed to go back and confront his fears. He took a deep breath and walked up the path to his front door. As he opened the door and stepped inside, a wave of nostalgia washed over him. It was the same house that he had grown up in, but it was different now. Everything had changed. But the more he explored, the more he felt like he was being watched. He went down into the basement, his heart pounding in his chest. The darkness was suffocating, and the air was thick with anticipation. He could feel his senses heightened as he made his way to the wall with the tunnel. He stared at the seemingly innocuous part of the wall, wondering what lay behind it. With a deep breath, he put his hand on the wall and felt for the crevice. He closed his eyes and took a step back. In his mind, he was preparing himself for whatever he might find. When he opened his eyes, he could see a faint outline of the tunnel entrance. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out and touched it. And that's when the tunnel revealed itself. The air around him seemed to crackle with energy as the tunnel shimmered into view. He could feel his heart beating in his chest. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. The tunnel was dark and narrow, but he could feel a strange pull drawing him in. He crawled through the darkness, his body trembling with anticipation. As he went deeper and deeper, he could feel the temperature drop around him. It was like entering a different world. Finally, he saw a faint glimmer of light ahead of him. He crawled towards it and soon found himself in a vast cavern. The air was cold and damp, and the silence was deafening. He stood up and looked around in awe. In front of him was a sight that he could never have imagined. There were rows upon rows of coffins, each one intricately carved and adorned with strange symbols. He could feel a shiver run down his spine as he realized that he was in a place of eternal rest. He took a few steps forward and reached out to touch one of the coffins. As he did, he could feel a surge of energy flow through him. He pulled his hand back quickly, his eyes wide with wonder. He had never experienced anything like this before. He could feel the presence of the spirits of the departed all around him, their energy echoing through the cavern. He could sense their sorrow, their anger, and their longing for peace. He wanted to help them, but he didn't know how. As he stood there contemplating what to do, he felt a sudden movement in the corner of his eye. He turned to see a shadowy figure emerge from the darkness. The figure was tall and thin, and it seemed to be made of smoke and shadows. It glided towards him, and he could feel his heart pounding in his chest. The figure stopped in front of him and raised its hand. In that instant, he knew that he was in the presence of a spirit. The spirit spoke to him in a voice that was like the wind whispering through the trees. It told him that it was the guardian of the cavern, and it had been watching him. The guardian explained that the spirits in the cavern were trapped, and they needed his help to move on. It told him that each coffin held a spirit that had been here for many years, and they were restless and unhappy. The guardian asked him if he would help them find peace. He knew in his heart that he had to do something. So he agreed to help the spirits. The guardian led him to the first coffin, and he could feel the energy of the spirit within it, pulsing like a heartbeat. He placed his hand on the coffin, and as he did, he could feel the spirit's gratitude and relief wash over him. He repeated this process with each coffin, and as he did, he could feel the cavern's energy shift and change. The spirits were finally able to move on and find peace. As the last spirit was freed, the guardian approached him and bowed its head in gratitude. He knew that he had done something truly special, and he felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. The cavern was silent now, and the spirits were at peace. He could feel their presence all around him, but it was no longer heavy or oppressive. It was light and airy, like a gentle breeze. He knew that he had made the right decision by helping the spirits, and he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. As he made his way back to the tunnel, he could feel the cavern's energy enveloping him. He knew that he would never forget this experience, and he carried the memory of the spirits with him always. When he finally emerged from the tunnel, he could feel the sunlight on his skin and the wind in his hair. He took a deep breath and looked back at the house. He knew that he would never forget what he had found inside the walls, and he carried the memory of the spirits with him always. All right, guys, that's all for today's video. What do you think happened to the man? Let us know your thoughts below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.